March, I checked in and I was seriously contemplating ending my life because I thought I truly had ruined my whole life. I thought I lost everything, right? My wife, my kids, what was there left, right? So I allowed my anger, my competitiveness to really drive what I was doing for entrepreneurship. And what I did is I left my family behind, and I also would get very defensive and very short-tempered with my wife, which built up over time, compounding over years, really essentially the first 7 years of our marriage.
What was going through your mind during that moment when you found your son in the garage hiding?
I was devastated, For him, that's the last thing a mom wants, is for their child to see their father act that way and to be scared. You never want your child to be scared, especially as parents. You never want to cause that.
What did that feel like at that moment? It was dark. It was dark. It was very dark.
Rock bottom doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's alone, and sometimes it's a motel room. Today's conversation is about a rock bottom moment and the rebuild that followed. My guests are Ty Condie, founder of the Dad's Movement, and his wife, Jenna. There was a point where their marriage was essentially over. After a physical altercation between him and his father, Ty was arrested in front of his wife and kids, spent the day in jail, and was released to a motel room, separated from his wife and kids, isolated and facing thoughts of ending his life. That night became the line in the sand. What makes this conversation powerful isn't how low it went, it's what happened after. Radical ownership, emotional control, brotherhood, and a marriage that wasn't just repaired, but rebuilt into something stronger. This episode is for anyone who feels like they're holding it together publicly while falling apart privately. And for anyone who knows that if something doesn't change, life will eventually force it to. Hey, really quick, thanks so much for listening. The purpose of this podcast is to help people understand that they have the ability to choose the direction of their life, whether that be business, finance, relationships, health, any of that. I believe that this podcast will give you the tools to take the right steps. But we need your help. Please be sure to like, to comment, to subscribe. It helps us to bring on more guests and continue to get better. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, you guys, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
So I want to get right into it here. So Ty, if somebody is hearing your story for the first time, I heard it the other day and I just found it to be an incredible story. But if somebody is hearing your story for the first time, where does it really begin?
Yeah, so it really begins with childhood. Like I think most people can relate a lot with their current circumstances with what their childhood was. My childhood was, it was very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I was the kid that had really bad acne around my face here, got made fun of for that, and then I had a terrible stutter. I couldn't speak through really all my junior high school years.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one really wanted to be around me. And so my way of coping or sedation was just to default to basketball. That was really my identity as a young child. So I was very sheltered, very secluded, and I had no friends. I virtually had zero friends through all of my formative years. And that's just the reality of it, but that's where my journey began. So I've done a lot of unpacking through my childhood and learned lessons through that, good and bad and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's taught me a lot about childhood and about adulthood and how to ultimately have the best relationship of both for our to-be kids.
That's awesome. So yeah, and that led you to, there was a night that was kind of the rock bottom, which you talked about the other day, right? Can you share a little bit about that particular story?
Right, yeah. So with me having no friends, I carried a lot of resentment, right, through my childhood. A lot of anger was built up. My coping mechanism, again, was basketball, was my athletic achievements. And I was able to achieve very high accolades and achievements with my athletic career, which I'm very proud of, but also deep down, I was just building this resentment, this anger. That's also the emotion that allowed me to perform at the highest level athletically. Very competitive, and I carried that also into school and into business and entrepreneurship. I'd had this anger and this fuel and this competitive desire. And then I also brought it into my marriage, right? So this is something where the way that she was raised and I was raised was very different. Our circumstances, I was around anger a lot from my basketball coaches and other men in my life. That's really the one emotion I could relate to. So it was one that I defaulted to. She was raised very differently in a home that was with a father who never once raised his voice in anger, never once swore. And that's very different, right? From how I was raised in my environment, again, mainly in the basketball community with coaches and mentors. So I brought this emotion and this built-up resentment into my marriage, and also this competitiveness. So I allowed my anger and my competitiveness to really drive what I was doing for entrepreneurship. And what I did is I left my family behind, and I also would get very defensive and very short-tempered with my wife, which built up over time, compounding over years, really essentially the first 7 years of our marriage.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
10 now.
10.
Yeah, we can. So,
So
we're hitting that decade. And so, yeah, the first 7 years, it was a very emotionally unsafe environment for her. Now, we didn't have an open relationship where we're talking openly. We didn't talk openly about our feelings or about her unsafety and about my emotions. And that was a mistake that we learned the hard way, or rather I learned the hard way. But yeah, so it kept compounding, and this anger kept boiling, and the unsafety kept getting worse and worse. But I guess the tipping point was where it was a situation with my father, who I have a lot of love and respect for, and we're doing our best to be the best men we can with each other and in our own lives.
Okay.
But 2 years ago, we hit a point where we had a dispute, and it was regarding a situation between us, a lot of circumstances around that. But I allowed myself to get to a place of anger that was I'd never really felt before. Really, it was overflowing, and we got into a verbal altercation, which then became physical. And I, for whatever reason, just felt I needed to just shove him as hard as I possibly could, and he ended up flying back. And we're outside in front of my parents' house on their driveway, in front of my wife, my kids, my mom. This dispute was very public. He ended up flying backwards and scuffed up his arms and the back of his neck, and thankfully, at the same time, my wife called 911. She called the police.
I did.
And so about 5 minutes later, the sheriff and 3 deputies came over to the house. So there's 4 of them total, and interviewed my mom, my dad, myself, and my wife, and asked just what had occurred here. And we had never dealt with the cops before. I mean, in retrospect, maybe we should have said, "Hey, I need to speak with my attorney." We didn't say that. We just told the truth, and it didn't look very good for me. But in this moment, after they had done interviewing us and kind of gathering information, we realized that we could not find my son. And he's my mini-me, he's my best friend, and we didn't know where he was. He was 3 years old at the time. And so we're looking for him up and down the street. We're looking around in the backyard, and we didn't know where he'd gone. After several minutes of searching, I found my son in the back of my dad's garage hiding, and he was shaking in fear. He had peed his pants, and was so scared of this version of his dad that he'd never seen before. And that was the last image that I saw as I was then put in handcuffs and taken off to jail. And I pray that I'll never forget that moment, because that for me has changed me internally. That was a huge turning point for me, a shifting point where I recognized that, because I was also at one point, I was that young child, right? Maybe not in the home with my dad, but I was that young child who was alone, who was hiding, who was scared. And so I looked at myself as that version of him in that moment, different circumstances, but also that I needed change so that my son could have a better childhood, a better life, right? So that was the last image that I saw. I spent 10 hours in the Washington County jail. And then my mom, like most moms would do, even in these dire circumstances, they have the heart of a mother, and she was the only one that was willing to bail me out of jail. So I got bailed out of jail, and my wife didn't want any contact, nor should she have wanted any contact. She was scared, as she should have been. My dad had a restraining order against me, and it was a very lonely moment for me. So I went home, got a few things, including a gun, and my mom then dropped me off at a motel in Central St. George.
She would just say like, okay, you can't go home. You can't stay here for right now. Like
We as a family need some space from you for right now because we don't know where this anger is,
Yeah.
but we need some time.
Correct.
Yeah, when it was like the final straw, like everything had been building up with the emotional unsafety in our household. And then this was just kind of like the final straw, rock bottom for everyone. So,
And during that moment, like you weren't thinking about what everybody was witnessing or the kids, whatever. It just wasn't in your mind. There was just this anger, and it just needed somewhere to get escape.
Right. Yeah, again, I allowed myself to let external circumstances regarding a situation with my father to control me, right? So rather than me control my emotions controlled me. So, yeah, my mom bailed me out after 10 hours of jail and dropped me off at a motel in St. George. And I checked in and I was seriously contemplating ending my life because I thought I truly had ruined my whole life. I thought I had lost everything, right? My wife, my kids, what was there left, right? So
So in your mind, there was no coming back from that.
I mean, you know, and what's so fascinating about that, Christian, is in that moment, I didn't care about all my accolades, my list of achievements and accomplishments. Like none of that mattered.
It was meaningless.
Yeah, I had some great financial wins. I had some great athletic achievements. I was, you know, I had this, that, and the other, but none of that mattered. None of that mattered. I thought I lost what was most precious, which was my wife, my kids. Those are really the only relationships that I cared the most about, and I thought that was gone. You know, so in that motel, I was contemplating ending my life. I wasn't sure, you know, really what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking late at night, I was like, who could I call? Who could I call just to talk to? And this was a big shifting moment for me. I recognized in that moment in that motel, I did not have a single close friend that I could call upon in this time of great need.
Yeah.
Not a single friend. And again, that was shifting point number 2 and it happened the same day. So that's a big thing that's changed in the last 2 years of my life is this focus on relationships, friendships, because it's needed. I mean, truly, if you have all the accomplishments in sports and in finances and even in physical fitness and things like this, but you're academically or you've had lots of achievements, but you're isolated, life's going to be tough.
If you go back to that moment and you're sitting there on the bed and you have that realization that I don't have anybody to call, what did that feel like at that moment?
It was dark. It was dark. It was very dark. I mean, and that's something that I had felt before. But at that time in high school, when I felt those lonely moments, I didn't have a wife and kids at that time. Now I had something to lose. Back then, I didn't really have anything to lose. Right? It was just my whole identity was revolved around basketball. But now I had something to lose.
Yeah.
I had something of value, tangible value that I could see, that I could feel, that I could touch. And so the thought of losing all of that while also feeling alone was a very dark time.
What happened after that? After you had that realization that you're
Right. So after that, I just went on YouTube, of all places. I was just bored. I was in the motel all by myself. I went on YouTube and I happened to come across a podcast, not too different from this right here, with a guy who I'd never met before, never spoken before, never heard about him before. And he's actually local to St. George. And we actually played basketball against each other in college. Didn't know this. But I found that out after the fact. I listened to his story, and his name is Mason Sawyer. I won't share his story because that's his story to tell, but I listened to his story, and I was so dramatically impacted by what he shared and the experiences that he went through, about his rock bottom, about his rebound, about his transformation. And I felt an instant connection to him, especially when he said at the very end of his podcast, he said, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% about how you respond next.
That's huge.
So, because I recommend you listen to his story, Mason Sawyer.
For sure.
We have a brotherhood, we have a friendship now because of this connection we've had without even knowing each other at this time. But his story dramatically impacted me, and the similarities as well. Like it's very funny. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in Godcidences. And I believe that was a Godcidence. I happened to come across this video on YouTube, and the way that our stories overlap in many ways are like this, with the age of his kids and the situation that he went through with his kids and with his family and the near loss of my own family. I just found it dramatically coincidental that I came across that story. And so I made a decision that night. At that time, I was like, hey, listen, life is 10% what's happened to me up until now, but 90% is how I respond next.
Mm-hmm.
So pulled up the bootstraps and said, hey, listen, I'm in a dark place. I'm in a dark time, but I'm not going to end it here. I'm not going to take the easy way out. And I reckon suicide is never the option, right? It was a weak moment for me to even consider that.
And that was just a little bit before you found the YouTube video.
Correct.
So you're sitting there on the bed, you realize you have nobody. Is that what goes through your mind then? And then later on, you're like, wait a minute, okay, there's got to be some other way. Maybe I need to research something and just see if there's something that can help.
A part of it was, yes, I was like, okay, 10% is what happened to me, but 90% I still have control over, right? How I respond next.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of got this competitive fuel inside me this same night, went from very high and low roller coaster of emotions alone in this motel.
Yeah.
And I recognized, hey, I'm a competitive guy. Let's figure this out. I've had so many things go right in my life. I've got a beautiful wife. I have wonderful kids. I've had great achievements in career and in athletics and my health, and all these things have gone right. But yet, how am I here? How does all this happen, but yet I'm here? So then I got very curious about this personal development journey, which I've been on now for over 2 years. And I've done, 1,000 to 2,000 hours of combined with coaching and mentorship and therapy sessions. And
Yeah.
I've been almost obsessed with this development of personal, or this journey of personal development, figuring out how can something be so far out of alignment or hit rock bottom so quickly, seemingly to me, very quickly.
Yeah.
Yet so many things were right beforehand, or I thought were right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, and again, I kind of use the analogy. I look at the wheels on a tire, right? Most cars have 4 wheels on them. And if you take one wheel off, that car's not going to function very well, right? So a guy could be financially successful. He could have a decent marriage, but if his health is out of whack, if that's the tire that's flat or off, then it's going to be difficult, right? So it's about having harmony with the kind of 4 key areas of your life: your physical health, your financial health, your relationships, and your spiritual and emotional self as well. So
I want to get to that shift in just a moment. But Jenna, I'd like to hear your perspective. Like, so from your side, what was life like in the relationship, like during that season? What did it feel like?
It felt like walking on eggshells, and it felt like that for a really long time, and it wasn't getting better.
Like it would set it, like if you did something wrong, it would just set him off.
Yeah, just
And there would be this
constantly walking
anger.
on eggshells. So my nervous system was always on edge. I was always in that fight or flight mode, and I didn't want that for our kids. I didn't want them wondering how Dad was going to respond to something. I wanted them to have a dad who was a steady ship, no matter what the storm was going on around. I wanted them to have our kids to have that. But yeah, it was just feeling unsafe emotionally, with him. And eventually it just got on too long that when that altercation happened with Ty's dad, my first instinct was to call 911. And that's pretty telling if that's
You felt
a
like you wanted to
first
protect
instinct.
everybody.
Yeah,
And
that was like my nervous system was on hyperdrive for so long that was the first immediate response, which is not a normal response for a wife to do. So,
but also I'm grateful that she did.
yes.
Yeah.
And people ask me about, like, oh gosh, Ty, that's so terrible that I look at that as one of the most important days of my life. Not the best day of my life, but the best day for my life. Right? I'm so grateful for that time that she called 911, that I was arrested. I spent 10 hours in the county jail because I don't know if I would have ever gotten out of that cyclical cycle of anger. Right? I don't know if I would.
like there needed to be that strong of a consequence.
For me,
Like,
yeah, because I'm very stubborn, right? I'm very competitive. I'm very, at the time I was extremely egotistical. And so,
Well, and I don't know if maybe you hadn't hit that rock bottom, you definitely wouldn't be where you are today.
Oh,
So,
no.
we've talked about sometimes letting a person hit rock bottom is the best gift that you can give them. You can give them the opportunity to truly change, to truly become better. And thankfully, that's what he decided to do. And it made all the difference.
What was going through your mind during that moment when you found your son in the garage hiding?
Yeah, I was devastated. You know, for him, that's the last thing a mom wants, is for their child to see their father act that way and to be scared. You never want your child to be scared, especially as parents. You never want to cause that. So I think that was his rock bottom, all of our rock bottom. But once you're down, you have to move somewhere. And it was up.
So
Thankfully.
when he was in the motel room, what was
Mhm.
going through your mind then?
Um,
'Cause you're home, you're with
I'm
your kid.
home, and
probably asking
obviously,
questions,
yeah,
trying to
obviously
figure something
sad.
out.
But honestly, some relief too. Some relief that, you know, that emotional unsafety piece was kind of removed for a second there. I didn't know how things were going to look, but I kind of had a little bit of reprieve. Um,
Did you believe that the marriage was over in that point, or were you still kind of unsure?
it was about, so after that happened, we did separate for 2 months.
Okay.
You know, I decided we just need some separation. I need time to figure it out. And I did believe that the marriage was over at that point. I was filing for divorce, and during those 2 months, I went through all the legal hoops with the lawyer and filed for divorce. Yeah.
What do you wish Ty had understood about how his anger was impacting both you and the kids?
Yeah.
Do you think he recognized that it was impacting you prior to that moment? I mean, obviously, when he found your son
Mm-hmm.
in the garage, that's impactful. But prior to that,
Right. We would have some conversations about like how I would feel,
Mhm.
but nothing too deep, because again, when I didn't feel safe around him, how do you really open up and be vulnerable to someone that you don't feel safe around? You can't, right? So he wasn't a safe space for me to really open up and let him know how I was feeling. So to an extent, I know you've told me that you didn't realize how your actions made me feel that unsafe. But looking back, I think you can realize, like, yeah, I've definitely felt unsafe for a reason. And I mean, yeah.
And I also justified it, right? I was like the master of
Mhm.
justification.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
because it wasn't all the time, like it was an addiction,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a daily or a weekly or even a monthly, like, maybe every 3 or 6 months, but it was, when it happened, it was bad though. I would have some really bad moments, right? That are just, I see them as, or I did see them as not that bad, but
You
the
downplayed it a little.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the impact though on my sisters and my mom and my wife, like dramatically impactful.
Mhm.
So I had to really come to understand, like, Ty, you've got to own not just what your intent was, but your impact, right?
Right.
Intent is one thing, impact is totally different. And that was one thing I never justified or never really understood, was the impact I was having on others,
Mhm.
right? And truthfully, I didn't care, right? I was so in my head, egotistical. I didn't really care. I cared about me, myself, and I in the moment, and what I thought was right, what I felt was justified. And I thought they were wrong. I was right. They were wrong. Again, that competitive desire that I've always had
Okay.
is,
They're like, I'm going to win this.
Right,
I'm going to win
yeah.
this battle. I'm going to win this argument. I'm going to win everything.
like
Okay.
that winning mentality, that competitive, you bring that into the marriage, you're toast.
Yeah.
Like,
If you're going to lose
yeah.
everything.
I mean, there's a time and a
Mhm.
place for it, and it served me in sports really, really well. But in marriage, there is no like win or lose. You've got to be humble. You've got to create the safe space. And this is a term I didn't even know this existed. The term holding space, right? Like I didn't know what that was 2 years ago, right? What holds something? Yeah. What are you talking about? But no, I understand now, and I'm still obviously working on it and creating that safe space for her to where she can be vulnerable. She can open up because there's trust there.
She can share without
Yeah,
feeling like
yeah.
on eggshell.
Yeah.
Share without worrying about his reaction is huge.
Mhm.
It's key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what holding space means, is being able to just listen.
Yeah.
Being able to be a friend, be someone that is trustworthy, that is calm, that is peaceful, that is meek, that is mellow.
Yeah.
Right. And those are attributes I did not do very well with, as you can imagine, for years. But now I've kind of been on this path of finding out that, like, keeping the warrior mentality within me, but also at the same time developing the strength to restrain it. Right. So it's because I do believe that men should be dangerous in the capability of defending their family, defending themselves, but at the same time, like with mixed martial arts,
Yeah.
at the same time, they're becoming these warriors, right? These like Spartan warriors that are elite physically, but also they're elite emotionally and spiritually, right? Like they have this respect for the art that they're learning. And that's kind of what I've been on this pathway for. And that's truly, if you want to know what DAD stands for, is a disciplined, anchored defender.
Oh,
Right? So it's a man, it's a dad who's dangerous with his capability, but also is strong enough to restrain it and know when to use it and how to use it. But he's like the warrior monk, right? He's the warrior, but also he meditates, he does breath work, and he's calm and he's peaceful and he's kind and he's loving.
Yeah.
That's a rare man. It's a rare man. That's what I'm building continually. That's kind of my obsession now, my competitive desire.
I feel your passion for it. Right. Just ready to just comes out.
Yeah.
So after you leave the hotel room, right? And Jenna's like, okay, we need to separate. I'm done. Like what's that first decision you made that you feel like started to change the trajectory of where you were going?
Yeah. First decision I made is I need to figure out her perspective, like what's going on, right? I need to figure out, and I just need to listen. Now, again, I was not good at this. And I people think you just hit rock bottom and then you just bounce right. No. I like hit rock bottom and I skidded. Like my face was in the dirt on the earth floor. And I was like, I was scraping along rock bottom. Another rock bottom moment was when she said, I don't remember what this month this was, but several weeks after being in a jail, I asked Jenna, is there anything I can do to save this marriage? And her response was, no, there's nothing you can do. He was out. No, devastated. But you know what though? I wasn't going to quit. I mean, what good of that? I'm not going to quit. So, but it was a low moment for me as well.
Did you kind of replay all those mistakes in your mind after you heard that?
Yeah, because I was doing the work, right? So your question was, what did you do after that moment in the hotel? Well, I started to learn about taking ownership. I wouldn't say I learned the skill, because that is a skill that takes time.
Sure.
And deep humility to own your mistakes 100%, take 100% accountability, 100% responsibility. Again, not for your intent, but also your impact. So
can I say something?
Yeah.
For me to answer that question, that changed everything was he brought the struggles to the light before he hid everything. So we went to therapy. We talked to, people, you made new friends and you let them know you're vulnerable and you let them know what was going on in your life. And that changed everything. So bringing the struggles to the light, not hiding anymore, not isolating, getting it out there and taking ownership. That was, I think, really.
Or he would hide the struggle.
Hide everything from the
It's like everything's great.
on the outside, we looked like a perfect family. We looked like we had a great marriage, happy family. No one would ever guess what was going on behind closed doors.
Was it a shock to your parents too? Like when they?
No, my parents, they live in St. George as well.
Yeah.
So, which
They knew.
which is great. Yeah. So they knew a bit more what was going on. Not maybe every single detail.
Okay.
But they knew more details. So it wasn't a shock necessarily to them, but certainly to my siblings, for sure, when they find out, hey, your brother was in jail, and like, hey, Jenna is thinking about, she's proceeding forward with a divorce. Like these are, wow, oh my gosh. And again, I just want to emphasize what she just said. There are so many people out there that have like picture perfect, like on the outside look amazing.
Yeah.
Yet internally they're hiding and they're trying to cope with so much deep stuff. Because truthfully, like regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are, there is an adversarial force against goodness, right? So people that are trying to be good and trying to be kind and trying to build the families, like the adversarial force wants to tear that apart as best he can. So a lot of people just keep this internal and not share it with others because they want to, again, put off the image that they have it all put together. But I've learned, and we've learned together collectively, like there's nothing wrong with saying that, hey, we need help. There's nothing wrong with calling in a favor. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm not okay. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a matter of fact, it's needed. People need to be more vulnerable, more open, because it's funny how, Christian, how much we have in common when we see each other's hearts. Right? We share really what's going on behind, take off the masks, unveil the curtains and see what's really going on. good or bad, right? Because it's not always just bad. There's some good things, but the more that you can be vulnerable and open and authentic with people, the more that they can see the true you.
Yeah.
And I believe truthfully, the more vulnerable you are, the more lovable you are.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's more people that can relate than what you think when you're not in those moments. Like you think you're the only one. And that's the one thing I know with Jimmy's groups where they have the circle of everybody and he has everybody step in and say, you know, he asks the men, for those who don't know, he asks the men, if you've ever been suicidal, step forward. And a lot of men will step forward, look around and they're like, oh, there's that moment, that realization that not the only one, but in those moments, it feels like you're the only one, you know? So I want to go like during the separation, you know, what did you focus on rebuilding? So I'm sure before you went, but you probably went and said, okay, what can I do? But what were you focused on rebuilding to create this different person that could heal a marriage?
Right. And that's the center letter, the A of dad.
Okay.
The A of the dad's movement is the anchor. That was the first thing I went to because I lost that, Christian. I lost that anchor, that spiritual and emotional anchor. I didn't have one, to be honest. It was not that I just didn't have one.
Yeah.
So the disciplined anchor defender has an anchor where he does practice mindfulness work, meditations. I learned the art of breath work. Changed my entire life. Just my emotional regulation changed dramatically just through being still and breathing and being peaceful. So that's really the first thing that I kind of experienced during the separation was my emotional regulation, my spiritual anchor. What were those? And reconnecting with that. Because truthfully, and being in the coaching space for over 10 years now, I found that, you know, and people always obsess about the physical transformations, right? The guy that has the muscles, the abs, things like that.
Yeah.
I have found the most impactful transformations that I've been a part of are those that can connect a deep spiritual and emotional meaning to their daily habits and actions, right? So you're truly tying in the body and the soul together. And that's where true transformation can occur. So
I love that. You've talked about really taking ownership for actions, emotions, the anger, like things like that. Like, what does that look like? Explain a little bit about what that feels like when you finally have that moment when you take ownership of those things that you've done.
it sucks. I'll say that it sucks. Like taking ownership is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, swallow the frog mentality. Like it's not fun at all. It's not enjoyable. It's not comfortable, but you've got to be in therapy sessions like what we did and hear some very hard things. And you've got to be humble enough. Like I had a big problem in our beginning therapy sessions when our therapist would use the word emotional abuse. I had an issue with that, right? Because I didn't see it as abusive. But now in retrospect, yes, it was, because that was her impact. It wasn't my intent to be emotionally abusive, but that was my impact. So I had to own that part, and that sucked. I didn't want to be known as an abuser. I didn't see myself as that.
Yeah.
But taking 100% ownership means not just 100% ownership of my intent, but 100% ownership of my impact.
Love it.
Huge difference.
That's huge. That's huge. So it's like not just from your perspective, you don't see it as being that abusive. And so you can be resistant to take ownership of it.
Right.
But when you consider her perspective and then you think, okay, that's where the ownership can come from.
And truthfully, that's where, because I work with men every single day, and we all have our own issues. But I see with marriages, most of the issues come from the male perspective, for when they don't take ownership or accountability or acknowledgement for the impact that they're having on their spouse. Right. So again, because we're all have a sense of pride and justification, some ego, and so it's we think, oh, like she just is having her moment. Maybe she's time of the month, whatever it is. But it's if that's really what she feels, then we need to honor that, right? If she says this, she's not just making it up. That's our intent could be one thing, but if that's her the impact that we're having on her, we need to own that and respect that. It is, again, it sucks. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary.
Men can tend to dismiss those feelings. So it's not something that we feel ourselves or right. And so it's like, well,
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We don't feel that.
Yes.
So why would she feel?
Yes.
Must be a little off.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so Jenna, you mentioned a little bit ago about one of the changes from him was starting to acknowledge and starting to share these challenges, whereas before he was hiding. Were there any other changes that you noticed at that time that felt real, like they were seeing there was some real change happening within?
Yes, and that's the one thing I struggled with initially, like opening my heart and the idea back up that we could possibly not proceed with the divorce was, how do I know if this is true and lasting change? How do I know if these changes are real and genuine and honest? And it just came back to consistency and time.
Okay.
So how did I feel mentally? How did my body feel? Was he being honest? How did he respond when I brought something up that was maybe not a fun conversation? How did he respond? Did he take ownership for things that he needed to take ownership for? All of those little things, it was tiny little things. Nothing was big or dramatic. It was tiny little daily drops in a bucket of trust being re-earned, tiny little drops. And then over time, it was a bucket full of water, a bucket full of trust. So it was just consistency, time, and him putting in the work every day. Every day.
You were able to see that. So I love that, where it's like in the beginning, you're like, there's just no way for this. And I love the analogy of the bucket with the drops, because I mean, it probably takes a full bucket before you start to shift your mindset a little bit. And so even though for him, he's like, I'm pouring drops in, I'm pouring drops in. It takes a lot of drops over the course of time before that bucket's finally full. But as long as you keep putting those drops in, then eventually that bucket became full, where it's like, oh, maybe there is something here. But it took time for that trust to rebuild.
Exactly.
All right. I love that. That's such a great analogy for it.
So if you're looking back, like what,
If there were some challenges in the past, or I guess the question would be, had there been challenges in the past that you had to rebuild from? And then what would have made this one different than those?
I mean, truthfully, like, we've shared truly what's happened in our marriage, but it's kind of been it's the ugly parts, right? It's the parts that we were very good at hiding.
Okay.
But we were also like, you would never think that we're also each other's best friend. Like when we were in college, we met each other and had an instant connection. We just hung out all the time. We dated for 2 years, hung out all the time. And we still had a lot of fun moments. That's why she stuck around for 7 years. Because even though she was walking on eggshells periodically, and sometimes it got really bad, we also had some great fun moments as well. Like it wasn't all like, doom and gloom all the time. Like we had many times a great marriage, and other times really bad, right? So I would say challenge wise, it was
I think maybe the emotional connection and feeling the safety there. And then also we've learned through therapy, we are very codependent on each other.
right.
And we need to learn, I think especially me, that I can be my own person and
Love that.
I don't need him,
Right.
I want to have him in my life,
Right.
but I can have a life without him if I need to. And that was a huge shift for me and both of us.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll say this as well. Like it's we had, I can't think of really another big challenge that we had to recover from, because that really was the big one, was my emotional regulation. But looking back in retrospect, there was a shield up. Maybe it was invisible shield, but there was a shield up or a guard that she had up that prevented us from having a more intimate, relationship, because of, again, her emotional unsafety, that she couldn't really fully let herself go. And so, but now the past 2 years, like intimacy's been through the roof. I mean, like, I don't want to get too in detail here, but like we've been, it's amazing how when you create a safe space for your wife, the emotional and the intimate connection that you have it skyrockets. So, a guy can create a financial safe place, or, whatever, other areas of safety, but if that emotional safety is not there, there's going to be a disconnect. There's going to be a ceiling, right, of their intimate connection in the relationship. But if you can create that emotional safety to where she feels fully seen, fully heard, fully valued, like she can trust you.
Yeah.
That roof comes off and you skyrocket with your intimate and emotional connection.
If somebody's trying to rebuild, do you think that first step of rebuilding something meaningful, does it come from like I guess, taking ownership or, really acknowledging and understanding what happened and what got there. You know what I mean? What made it there, right? Where you're looking at her perspective of what it is. Does it take that really, brutal honesty about how it felt, how it looked, all of those things? Like, we need to have it all out on the table so we know
Yep.
where to rebuild from.
Yep. I think when you finally held space for how I felt during everything and you actually validated it, when he finally validated my feelings, that was a shift for me. Because in the past, it was always brushed off. It was always kind of twisted to how he thought it should look. And so when he finally validated my feelings, that's when I felt like we could move forward and progress because there was change there.
Okay.
By the way, I just need a pause. She's so beautiful. Like I just, and this is something that I'm really grateful for is I had looked at our first 7 years of marriage, and I always thought she was beautiful. That's never waned at all. I always thought she's the most beautiful girl in the world, love her to death, but I didn't always treat her like that, right? I didn't create that safe space for her.
Yeah.
And now she, like me, we were really good at hiding our pains, right?
Yeah.
Internally. But what I've noticed in just the last 2 years since I've been fixing myself and improving myself on this journey is that now she's not only beautiful, but she radiates light. Like everywhere she goes, she has this different energy about her.
Yes.
And that came from, I needed to fix myself and change myself internally for her to be able to have that light and that glow.
Right.
We're saying this just recently is men, especially men, are really good at putting on that mask, right? That fake face. But what they can't do is they can't force the glow from their wives, right? So I was telling you earlier, Christian, how do you tell a truly godly man? How can you tell a true man of integrity, of honesty, a good man? Does his wife radiate light and happiness and glow? If she does, she's with a good man. If she doesn't,
I love that.
then
The thing, sitting on this side, this is interesting, and I hope when you go back and watch this, you'll probably see what I'm talking about.
right.
The thing that I caught while you were telling your story is the way that she looked at you. That woman loves you, and I can tell that. And it made me think about when you were mentioning before about how her radiating light, and you can tell that a lot of that stuff has been worked out. Like when she was telling that story, I didn't see pain. I didn't feel pain. I felt somebody who truly loved and respected the man that was sharing this story because they had made such a big change and gone through something. They fought whatever that battle was and won that battle, right? So that's how I know, because sometimes you'll hear people making some change and there could be some of it they're BSing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
They don't get that look that you got from her, and that was amazing. So anyways, I hope you guys go back and watch it, and everybody watching will say, okay, now I see what Christian was talking about. It was amazing. You can't fake that. For Ty, when did you realize that rock bottom wasn't just something like a personal collapse, but something that can help others who are going through that same thing?
So when did I realize it was? So say that question one more time.
When did you realize that your experience of hitting that rock bottom and having that shift is something that could be lessons that you could teach others and help their lives?
Yes. Well, again, it came from that principle, which again, this is credit to Mason Sawyer. Love this guy, amazing guy. He's the one that again said via the podcast that I listened to on YouTube.
Yeah.
Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond next. Okay. So, and then as Jenna said earlier, one of the changes I started making was I was more open about my struggles, about my pains, about my weaknesses, right? Before I was so darn competitive all the time. I didn't want to show weakness. Like you never do that. Even if you're in a basketball game, you're tired, you can't put your hands on your knees and show that, breathing hard. You got to show strength, right? But I made that change and made that shift of being more open and honest with my struggles, with my vulnerabilities. And then it's amazing how vulnerability invites vulnerability. So as I became more vulnerable and more honest and more authentic and lived a life of integrity, then others were invited to do the same.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, when did I realize that I could impact other men? It was as I became more honest myself and more vulnerable, is people came out of the woodworks. And sometimes not even out of the woodworks, just in the public eye, in the very open, just this guy and this guy and this guy, like Ty, I relate with that. Ty, I had the similar issue. Ty, this, that, and the other. And I've just come to realize, like, even though we're each individuals with different stories, we're also just a mirror of each other in so many ways. right? We may have different specifics in our stories and our struggles, but there's also like a lot of overlap. And I love the principle, I love the quote that you are most qualified to help the person that you used to be.
Yeah. Love that one.
So, because I think so many of us, myself included, we get caught up in, oh gosh, I wish I could do this better. I wish I could do that better. I'm failing here. I'm failing there. You know, we can get kind of in this negative rut mindset and how we're imperfect, right? Or how we could be performing or optimizing our performance at a higher level.
Yeah.
But yet we got to realize that we're doing better than we think we are in most cases. And the mistakes that we make, they don't disqualify you. They actually qualify you specifically to help that person that you used to be.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a lot of them within our family, our communities, the coaching spaces. There's a lot of people that are looking up to us that we don't recognize. And it's our job as leaders to help those versions of us that we used to be. And I think it's a beautiful concept, you know, because maybe one guy was fat one time and now he's not.
Yeah.
He's qualified to help the person that still is. Maybe someone was broke and now he's not. Maybe someone had a bad marriage like we did and now they don't. We can help those people that are, again, the version of us that we used to be. So we don't need to be perfect. No one ever is. No one will ever will be. But if you can just accept the fact that imperfection is okay, and there's people that need that imperfect version of you, then this world can be a dramatically shifted place with us all helping, again, the versions of ourselves that we used to be.
Love that. So by you sharing some of the story and being vulnerable and sharing some of the downsides that you've had or the rock bottoms that you have, there's some other men that have connected to that and say, hey, it's me too.
Right.
And can you help me?
Right.
Or can you share some insight with me?
Mhm.
I love that because I think as men, we just believe that sharing some of those things is really a sign of weakness.
Mhm.
I think it's a sign of strength, but even knowing that it's challenging, you know, it's challenging to share that because if people ask me like, hey, are you doing everything's great? Everything's awesome. Everything, you know, I love that.
Yeah.
And there might be a challenge there. And, you know, so it's like, where is that line of being vulnerable and being able to share some of those things? And it's okay to share of those, but not living in it, not, you know, and what I mean by that is it's very easy to share everything that's going wrong. There's always something that's going wrong. Yet there's always something that's going right. I try to share a little bit more about what's going right, but I think that there is value in sharing some of those things that's going wrong. But where do you think that fine line is of like sharing some of that stuff and it not being, you not perceiving it as like, oh, I'm weak because I'm having this problem, but I'm actually strong and sharing this and I'm being vulnerable and sharing with people these other challenges that I'm having.
Right. Well, I think first off, I think vulnerability is not weak. It's the opposite of weakness.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is straight. If you want to talk about a man who's truly confident, it's a man who can speak his vulnerabilities and not care about the judgment of others. And that used to be very different from my mindset. I care deeply about what other people thought about me. There's maybe people on this podcast listening right now that, oh, they're judging me. My wife says this all the time, let them, right? It's the Mel Robbins, it's let them theory. Let them theory, right? And so, but yeah, vulnerability, people are going to think what they want to think. It's our job to not care about that. I love the quote, what other people think about you is none of your damn business.
That's a good one.
So it just, you be authentic, be vulnerable, because that is a strength. Again, like you said, don't live in that, right? Own it, learn from it, because there are no losses. There's only wins and lessons, not wins and losses. There's wins and lessons. And it's because there's a lot of lessons that I've learned through the dark times, through the rock bottoms, through the tough days. But I've, rather than wallow in that, I own it through vulnerability.
Yeah.
But then I also recognize, hey, let's get better. Let's make today better than yesterday. Tomorrow's gonna be better than today. And just again, feel that competitive desire, but in a healthy way now, right? So it's that, again, that's, you're channeling that warrior mentality, the competitive warrior that's physically elite, mentally sharp, but combining that with the spiritually sound, the emotionally anchored man. And that is a rare man. Yeah, you don't see that guy very often. That's what we're building here at the Dad's Movement.
And you mentioned earlier, I think before, it might have been before we started this, but that you thought isolation is one of the biggest threats, men to their families. marriages
Mhm.
to all of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, isolation is probably the number one tool of the adversarial force to take down families, men, because he recognizes if he can get men on islands, right, isolated on islands, then we're weaker,
Mhm.
right? But when we're together in a community, in a brotherhood, in the dad's movement, we are stronger.
Yeah.
And so yes, it's community and brotherhood is so key. It's so key. No matter where you're at in the world, you've got to have a brother. You got to have people that you can rely on, that know you, that you know them. You're there for support. You're there for love. You're there to celebrate wins.
Mhm.
Yes, that's a big one.
You know, that's another big, you're there to have, adventures with, fun with, people that you generally enjoy being around. Like
Yeah.
this is key. And because life's not always doom and gloom, right? I think a lot of coaching spaces, this is one thing we definitely don't do in the dad's movement, but so many coaching spaces are just doom and gloom all the time. It's like that vulnerability you were talking about, but they just live in it, right? It's always like every coaching call is just dark and heavy and but listen, there's a time and a place to be open and honest about it. I get it, but let's talk about it. Let's address it. Let's own it. But let's also work on having some changes
Yeah.
through fun. Like, let's go out and have fun. I think a lot of guys in development space, like maybe have a leader or a coach that's just militant style, right? Just drilling all the time. Go, you're not performing like this and this and this. And he just locks up. He puts a wall up. Sometimes you just need to take a guy out and go shotgun shooting, or go out and on a hike, or go out bungee jumping. Have some fun, like the metaphorical, let your hair down, and you will see more change in that man than you would with a year of just the militant style all the time.
Yeah.
So that's, again, part of the core ethos of the dad's movement is, yes, it is health optimization. It is leadership, both at home and in business, but it's also friendships, like deep rooted friendships. And it's fun. Like,
Yeah.
we bring fun. I mean, and that's kind of, if I'm going to talk about myself just a little bit, it would be, I love to have fun. I've always loved to have fun. We went to Europe for a honeymoon. We spent 2 months in Europe.
Love it.
We've had a lot of great experiences out, in Hawaii. We were there for a few years. We know how to have fun. That's something that's always been energetically, I've been drawn towards. So I'm bringing my experiences, good and bad, lessons I've learned through my personal development, but also just my attitude and my personality. It's fun. And that's what the dad's movement is all about.
I love that. And I think it's so important because I know there are a lot of guys out there that don't really have friends, and they just kind of internalize everything, and it starts getting dark and something they need to get out and make friends. And I think some of them will get nervous about it and think, well, why would this other guy, why would he want to hang out with me? What? And it seems like that's kind of what you're wanting to create, is something where those people can have somewhere to go and they can make some really awesome core friends, and that can change their life.
I see this a lot because I work with business owners, I work with entrepreneurs, and with that specific client avatars, most specifically, male loneliness and male suicide at an all-time high. Because with entrepreneurs and business owners, you're leading teams, right? You're always the one that's delegating, leading, but who do you go to? Who do you report to? Right. And we just kind of, as entrepreneurs, we just shoulder all of it ourselves most often. But we don't have any support group. We don't have a brotherhood. We don't have a community. Right. And so, I see that male loneliness is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, when you survey entrepreneurs and ask them the question, in a time of great need, how many friends do you have to call upon in that time of great need?
Yeah.
The most common answer is 0.
Wow.
Most common answer is 0. So just, let that sink in and maybe you're listening to this podcast and thinking, that's me. I want to let you know that you're not alone, and there is community, there is brotherhood, and there is connection.
I love that. If you could sit across from that man in the hotel room, what would you tell him now?
I would say, I love you. I'd say, I see you. I would say, be patient. I'd say, be humble. I'd say, you are loved. and you are valued and you have value. And I would say, keep going. Don't give up. Keep going.
I love that. So the dad's movement. You've talked about there being 4 areas that are in it, right? And part of that being just physically fit, like the importance of that.
Well, yeah, that's really the first. As a personal trainer, nutrition coach, mindset coach for 10 years now, we have most of our experience in that area.
Yeah.
And so, but where most coaching programs go, right, they touch on it a little bit, or maybe they just do fitness and just do nutrition. So we do the full spectrum of truly optimizing men's health, right? So everything from hormone therapy and peptide therapy and gut health, all the way to nutrition plans and cardio prescriptions and training protocols, everything in between, right? So it's a really comprehensive approach with medical care that we have great partnerships with, fantastic providers that are skilled and talented in men's health optimization, not normalization, but optimization.
Love it.
And because truthfully, and I say this all the time, my guys, if they're listening to this, they know what I'm about to say, but when a man has his health, he has a million different problems and a million different goals. When a man does not have his health, he has one goal: to get healthy again.
Yeah.
So truly, health is wealth. And if you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead others. So we focus on four key things. So first is health optimization. Second is leadership. That's in the home, in your business. Third is friendship. And these are true friendships that you can call upon in a time of need. Okay. I like to call them the 3 a.m. friend. It's 3 a.m. You're in a tough spot. Who can you call on? Who's your homie?
Yeah.
Who's your blood brother? Who can you go to war with? Right.
Yeah.
And then fourth is fun. And that's just really, again, my personality. I love to have fun. I've always loved, I didn't really prioritize it the way I should have.
Fun.
Yes, fun, because golly darn, you got to get out and sometimes go out shooting guns with the boy, or go NASCAR racing, or go, skydiving. Just do something fun that's going to be out of your shell to get you out of that comfort zone, right? Because as we know, there is no growth in the comfort zone, but there's also no comfort in the growth zone.
Yeah.
So get out, get uncomfortable, enjoy that, because when you're uncomfortable, you're also growing, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in your marriage, a relationship. When going out and doing things out of the ordinary, it's uncomfortable, you're probably growing.
Yeah. I love it.
So again, so it's health optimization, leadership, friendship, and fun.
If somebody wanted to either join this or inquire about it, get more questions, or get questions answered, whatever, where would they go?
Go on my IG. So at Dad's Movement, you can send me a DM there. You can also go to dadsmovement.com.
Harry, you want to bring that up really quick? We'll bring it up on the screen for you.
Right.
dadsmovement.com.
Yeah, it is what it is. I haven't been a tech guy, so my whole coaching career, I've always grown through word of mouth and through just delivering results and growing through just people interactions, right? But now I'm a tech guy. I'm learning how to do web. Love it. Let's do it. Get a social media. We've got, at the time of this podcast, we've got 113 followers on Instagram. Just started last week. We had a launch party last week for the Dad's Movement.
Yeah.
This is my 5th iteration of a coaching company. And this is one I'm extremely optimistic about, investing heavily here in local St. George for a large part, because there is nothing like this here in St. George. Here local to St. George, there's really nothing like a men's comprehensive approach to health, leadership, friendship, and fun. And so I'm learning how to be a techie. So a lot of sites and social media. And so we're going to be putting out a lot of content showing truly like who I am, who we are as a married couple, who the guys are that we're attracting, because your vibe attracts your tribe, for sure. So we're going to put out good vibes, positive vibes, authentic vibes. And I think the guys that are drawn to this, maybe drawn to the story or drawn to the movement, they'll come and we'll just build this group.
If there's a man watching this and he's kind of searching for some answers in life, right? What could you tell him about the type of transformation he may experience with this?
It is fulfilling. I would say it comes from within, right? I see so many guys get obsessed, which is not a bad thing, but they get obsessed with the exterior, right? With the physical. Right? Ty, like, how do you get the abs, bro? How do you get the muscles? Like teach me. I want to get that. And I like to say, okay, well, where's your heart at? Tell me about your marriage. Do you have any addictions you're going through? What's your emotional regulation like? Because if you can fix the inside, and I truly believe that, and this is factual data based on my 10 years of experience in the coaching space with hundreds and hundreds of men, is that the exterior is a representation of the interior in alignment, right? So if the interior in alignment, you're going to have a physical representation of that on the exterior.
Yeah. Jenna, what has this transformation been like for you?
It's been amazing. I'm all here for it, and it's wonderful to be in the wife's perspective, seeing him make his own journey, but then to help other people make their own journey and to improve not only other men's lives, but marriages and families. I couldn't be more proud of him, and it's great. I fully support what he's doing, and it's fun to see where he's taking this and all the positive feedback that I'm getting from other families and men. It's wonderful.
And it's probably different too. Like you've been there, and so when there's those families are there, and they're like, "There's just no path forward," you're like, "Well, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're feeling like, and here are the things." And then for the man to be able to say, "I don't know what I could do," and you're like, it starts with a drop of water. You got a big bucket to fill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes time. It takes time. It's just a lot of patience as well. Because I remember saying to her many times, I was like, "Well, Jenna, I'm doing the work. Like I'm doing the work," and I was doing the work, but 7 weeks of doing the work doesn't offset 7 years of emotional abuse. Right. That's a big. People think, "Hey, let me go to this weekend retreat or this week. Oh, and I just had this change." And these guys come home and they're all psyched up and like, honey, I've changed. Like, well, don't tell me, show me.
I love
Right.
that.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
What did doing the work look like to you? What was it?
Well, it's kind of what I said earlier. Doing the work was a lot of just the emotion regulation. It was not being an a-hole. That was part of the work, was not being the a-hole. And I'm also proud to say that in the past 2 years, I have not once raised my voice to her. I've not once sworn to her.
So was it like, was it reading? Was it watching YouTube videos? Was it, all the above, just everything that you could?
We did therapy.
What was it?
Individual and couples.
Okay.
Therapy. I've had a lot of great coaches. I mean, I'm super grateful for. I've learned through them different lessons here and there. Been a part of several different coaching groups and had several different therapists. And we've been in. I've lost track of the number of hours of coaching and therapy combined, but it was needed. It was necessary. It was worth the investments. It was worth the time. But yeah, that's what doing the work looks like, is getting down and doing the nitty gritty and learning, hey, to be humble. And you got to listen, right? You just got to listen. You got to learn. You've got to, because other people, your wife, your therapist, your coach, your mentor, they're going to see blind spots in you that you can't see yourself, right? That's what a blind spot is. You can't see that. So just be open, drop the ego, drop the pride, and allow yourself to learn, because it's beautiful when you can be humble enough to accept the feedback from others. Feedback is my lifeblood. I love feedback. I love it now. I used to hate it.
Yeah, people are normally afraid of it. Right?
Yeah, I used to hate it, but I eat it up.
Like, I don't want to hear if I'm making mistakes. I don't want to hear it. Right.
Right. And people sometimes ask me, "Hey, Ty, are you coachable?" Like, and I like to answer, I love to be coachable. I want to be the most coachable guy ever, because again, that feedback, that coaching, again, I don't have to receive it. Maybe they are, off, out of alignment, or maybe it's misguided, but feedback is everyone's lifeblood. It truly is.
I love that, because it's okay to hear that maybe you made a mistake, you did something wrong, or whatever. It's hard to hear, but I like that you can be open to it.
Right.
And then if you're open to it, then you can make a decision on what to do with it. Right. If you're just closed-minded, like, no, I'm not, then there's no growth there. Right. I can't make any changes, and it just stays the same.
Right.
But it's hard, I think, to make that shift to being okay with receiving feedback that maybe, especially when you're really competitive and you're like, I got to be number one. And somebody says, guess what? You're not.
Right.
You're not number one. That'll be crushing you. Like, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
But to have that shift, to be okay with hearing that.
Right.
And then being able to learn so that you can be that number one.
because we see that look that you get. Now you know you're number one.
Yes.
And that's something we as men all want to have is the women to look at us like that when we're talking. That's amazing.
Guys, thanks so much for sharing your story. I really
Right.
appreciate it. And I think it's going to help those that, especially if they're in those moments and they can believe that, hey, maybe we've got a chance.
If I could just end with this, like, you know, people, they'll, our photo's not up there anymore, but, here, if you could go to back to the photo there. So if I could just end with this, we do have a beautiful family. Like, my wife's beautiful. We have wonderful kids. And again, on the exterior, it's always looked like we've had it put together.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to put your best foot forward, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also nothing wrong with looking like a, all-American family, whatever you want to call it, but saying, hey, you know what? Things aren't okay at home. Like, we need some help. We're going through some struggles. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I think that's where most people, tend to be afraid of the judgment of others, or afraid of, you know, so I hope, if nothing else, that this podcast is helpful to show that, hey, you can look great on the exterior, you can put out positive vibes, but you can also be vulnerable, you can be real, you can need help, and you can ask for help, and you can receive help. And whether people judge you or not, that's none of your damn business. You just focus on you, be true, and focus on your, you know, developing yourself. And truthfully, I guess I'll end with this. I love the movie The Bucket List Family. Or not, I love the movie The Bucket List. Great. I remember in that movie the phrase, I think it was talk about the pyramids, right? They're on top of the pyramids, and the ancient Egyptians believed that there's two questions that were asked at the gates of heaven. The first question was, did you experience joy in life? If you answer yes, you pass test number one.
Yeah.
Second question is, did your life bring joy to others?
So that's a big one.
So, and that's key, right? It's so important to, yes, work on yourself, work on your own self-development, but also be a blessing to others. Lead yourself, but also lead others. Bring joy to others. Be a give first mentality, not a take first mentality. Be a giver, not a taker.
Love it.
So,
Okay.
If I could add one more thing, you talked about what he did to kind of change. He did so much therapy, so many different coaching programs. And what I am really proud of him for creating with Dad's Movement is this is something he wishes he would have had that would have like shortcut and skyrocketed his change and his journey a lot quicker. You know, all the tools that he's learned, all the, you know, optimizing health as well as personal development and friendships, all those combined. It's such a unique group that he's formed. And so I think that's another reason why you're so passionate, is because it's everything you've learned that you wish that you would have had at that rock bottom that would make it so much of a quicker journey, I think.
And truthfully, yeah, some people ask me, what's your target avatar, right? Your client avatar. Well, it's me. It's me 2 years ago, but it's also me right now. It's a lot of times I get the guys that are the former athletes. They are competitive.
Yeah.
Because that competitive desire, that never leaves you, right? That stays with you, but you can channel it to good areas, right? With some skills and with some practice. It's the former athlete. Maybe he deals with anger issues. We all know. I did for years. It's the entrepreneur. It's the type A person. It's the go-getter, right? It's the guy that because he's so competitive and he wants to perform well in family and in business and relationships, and he has the humility to recognize that he's not at the optimal level, but he has a humility also to recognize that and to go out and pursue a better version of himself. That's really that's what the Dad's Movement is. It's a bunch of guys that are imperfect, but they're obsessed with transformation. They're obsessed with growth.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with pursuing that best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. As a disciplined, anchored defender for their family, for their freedoms. And he's a good man. He's a good man. He's a go-getter. And he's just, maybe doesn't have a tribe. Maybe he doesn't have a brotherhood. He doesn't have that community. Well, now he does.
Yeah. You're going to change some lives. Love it.
Cheers. Yep.